Hello, Kids Church teachers. Today, I would like to share with you some quick tips on how to have a stress-free classroom. The goal of every Kids Church class is to create an environment where kids can discover the God of the Bible. And with all the different personalities and energies coming into the classroom, that can sometimes be a challenge. But I would have to say the greatest challenge as a teacher is getting kids excited and engaging them in the things that we are actually presenting. So today we are going to talk about the three primary reasons kids lose focus and start to misbehave in class. And also how we can proactively plan our class to avoid many of these situations right off the bat, which is where the stress-free part comes in. But before we get into these 3 points, I just want to address one thing. Remember this: students are never the problem. It's their behavior that is the problem. So when we are actually addressing a student's behavior, we want to make sure we affirm the student, but address the behavior. So for example, little Johnny, he's talking out of turn, he's interrupting. Rather than saying, little Johnny, okay, you are being so naughty, just stop, stop. You would do something like this. Little Johnny, I know you have a lot of great ideas to share, but talking out of turn is disrespectful. So you are affirming the child, but addressing the behavior. We never want to condemn the child, but we definitely want to try to redirect the behavior. So remember that anytime we're dealing with a student. That's very important to remember. So the first reason kids misbehave in class is because they are seeking attention. So I'm going to give you an example here of maybe a student who loves attention. I don't know, maybe you even think of a particular student. You have someone in mind when you see this picture. But it's fair game. Students love attention. We cannot deny it. We cannot pretend it's not real. It's very real. And students, they will get attention wherever they can find it. Whether they get it from you or whether they get it from their classmates, it doesn't make a difference. They want attention. And some kids need more attention than others. And so some will take negative attention. Some will take positive attention. So whatever it is, kids love attention. So the number one thing in a class as a teacher we do not want to do is we do not want to reinforce misbehavior with giving too much attention to the misbehavior. We want to briefly address the misbehavior and move on, like as brief as you possibly can. So for instance, if it can be ended with just a look, awesome. If it can be ended with just a touch, fantastic. If it means you have to take the pencil away, that's fine. Whatever it is, it should be super brief. Don't spend a lot of time on a child who's misbehaving for attention. Now, the one thing we do want to do proactively to avoid issues with this in our class is to give a lot of attention to the positive behavior. So for example, I do this all the time. Students who raise their hand when I ask a question, I will only call on those students. And not only will I only call on them, will I actually point to them and I will say, you are doing a fantastic job raising your hand. What is your answer? So that is affirming the positive behavior. It's giving attention to positive behavior. Also, affirming students who are positively participating in discussion. So if they have a great answer, give them a high five. If they're working super hard on their worksheet, tell them, you are doing such a nice job in this worksheet. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, you are doing such a good job. So we want to affirm students who are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing in class. And make it a point to spend a lot of time on reinforcing those students who are choosing to do the right thing, choosing to have good behaviors in class. Have students be helpers. Kids are looking for attention all the time. One way to get attention is to help the teacher. And you'll see those are the students that jump up right away. Can I do the light switch? Can I do this? Can I do that? So proactively, in advance, say, little Johnny, you did a good job sitting on the yellow line. I'm going to let you do the light switch today. Or you can have them go get the markers or have them go do the activity sheets, whatever it is. Engage them. Let them be helpers in the class period. They love it because it gives them attention that they're seeking. The wiggly ones, you know who they are. They're the ones that can't sit still for more than 5 seconds. That's okay. That's the way they are. Have them sit next to you or have them sit in the front row. That way when they start to get wiggly, because you know they will, you can gently put your hand on their shoulder or maybe just poke them with your toe or whatever it is. You can address them, get them back on track, and the rest of the class didn't even notice it. So be proactive about putting those wiggly ones right next to you in class. Another good thing to do, circle time. Circle time is awesome. Circle time is awesome because it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It takes the one who loves to sit in the back row and have their own little thing going on and pulls them right up to the front row. So there we are face to face. But the second thing it addresses is the student who maybe doesn't have any friends or any connections. It also pulls them up into the front row so they feel like they're part of the group. Circle time is fantastic, and I encourage you to do circle time anytime you can, either on the floor or at the tables. You can sit but just eye to eye, everybody's the same distance from each other. It works super well. If a child is trying to share something in class to seek attention that has nothing to do with the lesson, we've had this happen as well. I know you all have. I've seen teachers do it and they handle it well. What you want to do is you just want to let them know, that sounds like a really neat story, and I'd love to hear it after class, but right now we're talking about this. So that way it shows the child that you're interested in them, but there's a time and a place for everything. And so make sure you take that time out after class to hear what they had to say, because that will go a long way for you and that child's relationship. And going back to children talking out of turn, this is another example. If a student is talking when they're not supposed to be talking, remember, we're supposed to handle it briefly, swiftly, quickly. This is another good way of doing it. If they're sitting way in the back row when they're talking and you don't want them to spend a whole lot of time talking to them about it, you actually just stop teaching. Stop, look at them, and wait. And when they stop talking and they look at you, you just say thank you, and you just move on. So that's another really good way, because I think in class that's probably our biggest thing is kids are talking when they're not supposed to be talking. So those are some great proactive tools for helping the student that is seeking attention and pre-planning our class so that they're getting attention in advance, so they're not going to be seeking it in a bad way. Remember this: if the student is talking, they are not listening. And if a student is not listening, they are not learning. So there's no point in moving on with anything in your class if they're not listening. So I encourage you to encourage them to be good listeners. The second reason kids misbehave in class is because they are bored. Yes, they can be bored. Even though what we may think we're doing is super exciting, they can actually get bored from it. So, the one thing that we do not want to do with a bored student is read straight from the teacher's manual, because then you will start getting looks like this. If you remember back in high school, in Communication 101, there was a lot of things you were being graded on when you were presenting things to the class. But the one thing was for sure, if you read straight from your paper, you would most likely be getting an F. And there's a reason for that. So teachers, I encourage you, read through your instructor manual multiple times before you get to class so that you don't have to have your eyes on the paper, so that you can actually plan a lesson that is interactive and fun and engaging for the students, because you're not staring down at your paper, you're actually engaging with them. We want to keep it interesting, and you could never do that when you're staring at your paper. So the first thing you want to remember, eye contact. Eye contact is key. You want to try to use as much eye contact as you possibly can. So if you're standing up here and they're sitting down here on the floor, get down to their level. Meet their eyes. It goes a super long way. The second thing, focus on building relationships. And the greatest place to do that is in your small groups. So small groups are not only a great time to, of course, do the activity page and go over the discussion questions, but this is where the relationship building can really happen, because you have 10, 15 minutes, say, with these students. This is a great time to ask them about their personal lives, ask them about their family, about their friends, about how they feel about the lesson. Ask for prayer requests, see if there's anything they want to pray for. So as soon as the kids notice that you're there not to just go through the questions and be done, that you actually care about them, they will actually start to engage more with you, be more excited to spend time with you, and build a relationship with you, and that will go a really long way. The third thing is delivering fast-paced lessons that involve all 5 senses. Now, I'm not saying you have to run around the class like a wild banshee, but what I am saying is don't spend too much time on any one thing, because you will start to lose them because you're doing too much of one thing. So if you're spending 20 minutes talking and about 10 minutes into it, you notice the kids are starting to scratch their heads and roll around, you're probably spending too much time doing that one part. So you want to keep it moving. They actually say that the age of a student actually dictates about how many minutes of attention they have on any one given thing. So if you've got a 7-year-old, they have about a 7-minute attention span before they need to move on to the next thing. So keep that in mind. As far as that goes, pay attention to the ages that you're leading, and really pay attention to their body language, because they can be getting bored, and it's just the way it is. So we want to keep things fast paced. The other thing is the 5 senses. So as far as your voice, use enthusiasm. Be excited. It keeps them engaged. Your movements, large movements, crazy movements, keeps the kids engaged. Using objects, pictures, videos. So if your lesson calls for an object lesson, get out the object, bring in the rock from home, or bring in the sock, or bring in the bag with stuff in it. It's going to really keep them excited. Every class is a teaching picture. Pull the teaching picture off the wall. Show them the teaching picture. They can even hand it around if they want. The videos. We interject the videos for a reason. It's one more way of engaging their senses. Kids get so excited when they get to use all 5 senses. You know, I know a lot of the lessons don't require 5 senses, but if there is something, like if your lesson does require, like, you're asked to use some kind of food or bring something in to smell, bring it, because the kids will be so excited to be able to taste something or smell something. So it's kind of crazy, but it works. 5 senses, using all 5 of them is amazing. Costumes. If you're doing a lesson and you can dress up or dress somebody else up, use a costume. Costumes are great, even if it's something super easy like Mary and Joseph. Bring a kid up, bring a boy up, put a hat on him, call him Joseph. Bring a girl up, put a hat on her, call her Mary, and use them as props during your lesson time. It definitely keeps them more engaged. It's more to look at, more to hear. And then the kids, of course, who are dressed up, they're having a ball because they're dressed up. Um, and then, like I had said before, don't spend too much time doing one thing. Change locations frequently. You know, that's kind of why we go from the yellow lines to the small groups and then back to the yellow lines and then a game over here. It's intentional because we know that kids get bored. And so if we can keep a fast-moving class going, they won't ever get bored sitting in one area. The other thing is prepare open-minded questions that can't be answered with a yes or no. So like when you're in those small groups, rather than just asking the regular questions, go a little bit deeper. So like for instance, you can ask a question like, if you're talking about Mary and when the angel came to talk to Mary, you can say, how do you think Mary felt when that angel talked to her? And then you can even take it a step further and say, how would you feel if an angel actually came and talked to you? That way they know that you really are trying to get out of them how they feel, what they think about things, and not just presenting the lesson and being done with it, but you actually care about them, which stems back to the relationship part again. So it goes a long, long way. The last thing we want to do for boredom busting ideas is give students opportunity to have some control over the class. Give choices that will give them control, but still allow you to be the leader. It's a good thing you're the leader. So here's an example. What would you rather do? Okay, so we're getting to the end of the class, and there's two things left to do. There's a game, and there's a video. You can say to the class, what would you rather do? Do you guys want to do the game first, or do you want to do the video first? Or when you're breaking into small groups, do you want to sit at the table or do you want to sit on the carpet squares? They will love feeling like they're in control. So you want to give options that will give them choices, but yet still take your class where you want it to go. So with that being said, you want to avoid open-ended options, like for instance, I don't know, should we clean up now? Or what do y'all want to do now? Because that can honestly go anywhere. So we don't want to go with those. So when you give them choices of two things, and either thing that they choose is still going to take your class in the direction you want it to go. So that will be super fun for them because they will feel like they're in charge for that short period of time, but yet you're still in charge and they don't really know it. So the third reason and final reason that kids will act up in class and start to misbehave is because they are confused with what is expected of them. Fuzzy rules, no consequences, those sorts of things can really create confusion in a classroom. So, I'll give you this here. Here's a visual for you. So we've got a student that comes to our class, and there's rules, but they don't really understand what the rules mean. Or there's rules and there's no consequences to the rules. Nobody seems to be following through with the rules. Or there's no rules presented at all. That can actually create a lot of confusion in a student and make them scratch your head and think, what's really going on here? Who's really in charge? And that actually is not a good place to be. So, as a leader of a class, the one thing you do not want to do is you do not want to be afraid to present the rules or present the consequences. Rules and consequences are super key in a smooth running class for everybody. It will make things so much easier and so much more fun. So which is why one of the first things we do is go through the classroom rules at the beginning of class. And not only do we want to go through the rules, but those session 1 leaders, I encourage you, take the time to discuss the rules, discuss what they look like. So for instance, I know one of our rules right now is always tell the truth. Ask the students, who in here tells the truth? Who in here has lied in the past? Is it important to tell the truth? Why is it important to tell the truth? And go on from there. Or another one of our rules is obey authority. Talk about that. What does that look like? Who are the authority? I a lot of times will ask, who's the authority in the class today? Is it important to obey authority? Well, it must be because God says in the Bible, according to this verse, that we should be obeying authority. Why? Why would it be important? So it's important to actually go through the rules and not only go through them, but discuss what they look like. Now, I know they have the same rules every week, so you don't need to beat a dead horse, but spend time every week at least talking a little bit about at least one of them for sure, because they're important. This is God's word. Every one of our rules is God's word, and the kids need to know that God's word is our rule book. And the world may have a different rule book, but this is our rule book. And there's a reason God wrote these rules down for us, because there will be blessings that come when we follow his rules. The other thing we want to do is, while class is going on, keep using these rules. Point out when students are doing what's expected of them. So what I did is the rules are also hanging on the wall now. They're not just in digital format and the PowerPoint, they're actually hanging on the wall next to the big screen so that you can actually reference back to them during the class period. You can say, little Johnny, thank you for being such a good listener and obeying authority today. Thank you for telling the truth. Thank you for working so hard on your worksheet as if you're working for the Lord. I know he is so proud of you. So you want to try to incorporate those life rules that they learned at the beginning into the class period. Super duper important, because then that makes it super clear that the students know what's expected of them, and that you are excited that they are doing what's expected of them. You want to keep students informed of what to expect at the beginning of a session or activity as well. So this will actually help create those boundaries in class. So for instance, when you're getting ready to start worship, say, okay guys, everybody stand on your feet on a yellow line. We're going to do 2 songs of worship. So you want to kind of let them know what is coming, what to expect, because there's a lot of comfort in knowing what's to expect. They want to know what's happening and how long it's going to be taking about. It's huge. It actually goes a long way, because kids, then they can gather themselves together and get prepared for 2 songs and not just one. Another example would be, okay, we're going to break into small groups now for 10 minutes, and then we'll meet back here at the end of those 10 minutes. Okay, so now they can gather their thoughts together, and they can actually go do something for 10 minutes, and they know where they're going after the 10 minutes when they come back. So there's a lot of comfort in that. So creating those boundaries, creating those expectations, and giving them an idea of what's going to happen and how long is really key. Oh, also when you're finishing up with activities, it's really helpful to give warnings. I know at the end of small groups, I'll a lot of times say, okay guys, 2 minutes, and then we're going to wrap it up and come back here. Or like at the end of the playtime at the beginning, that's kind of why we use the 2-minute timer. It gives them a transition time, so it warns them what's getting ready to happen, and so then they can mentally prepare for shifting gears and doing something different. Okay, so you now know the 3 primary reasons that kids will misbehave in class. And now I would like to challenge you to take a couple of these tools that we talked about today and intentionally interject them into your next class period and see what happens. Because ultimately, our goal is to try to create a stress-free class period where the kids can discover the God of the Bible and have their lives changed forever because of it.